I'd like you to imagine a world in which people are bland, uniform, and rigid, with identical attitudes, beliefs, and thoughts about everything. Now picture the polar opposite, a world in which people are wild, chaotic, and filled with contradicting beliefs. Which of these two worlds would you rather live in? And more importantly, who or exactly what determines which one you end up in? Believe it or not, it's our educational system that helps society sit between these two extremes, attempting to shape individuality while also maintaining a sense of societal stability. We often regard education as a catalyst for change, a place where young people are encouraged to explore, think critically, and pursue their passions, helping to shape them into members of society with the correct attitudes and mannerisms. And I do feel that most of us have witnessed this, some way, shape, or form, throughout our own lives. For example, I remember when I was about 8 years old, I often used to do something which I'm sure many of you in this room have done before, whether accidentally or intentionally, and that is litter. I used to litter a lot, and it was only through education that that changed. It was through a litter picking program at my primary school that I truly learned not to litter. This took place at a local park, and it was there that I began to notice the consequences of my actions. I began to notice empty crisp packets, empty bottles, and wrappers overflowing from filled bins, strewn along the footpath, and scattered in bushes. And it was in that moment, while I was collecting the litter, that my attitude shifted. And not only that, but so did the attitude of my classmates too. This taught me a greater lesson than just environmental awareness. Responsibility. Recognizing that my actions not only affected me, but also those around me and the environment in which I lived in. This experience, I feel, perfectly sums up what is known by sociologists as socialization, the process of truly learning how to act and behave within society. In this context, however, it was secondary socialization, as it's reinforcing norms which are often taught within the home. But why exactly is that? Why is it that some young people may learn certain attitudes at home, while others learn them through school? I believe the answer may likely lie within the fact that many of us are raised within different home environments. Some children have certain values and beliefs reinforced from a young age, whereas others don't have that supportive environment to sustain their personal development within. Personally, I felt this. Growing up in foster care, school was a consistent part of my life, even in different home placements, where there wasn't the consistency to actually reinforce certain behaviors and attitudes. So, in many ways, school became that place for me, and millions of other children, not just to learn and to absorb knowledge, but to truly understand how to act and to behave. Furthermore, school provides a sense of social reinforcement. Partaking in that litter-picking activity with my friends, classmates, and teachers just makes that lesson that much more impactful. Because as children, we don't just listen and learn. We imitate and replicate what we see. And it's in situations like this where education becomes more than just academics. It becomes life-changing. Beyond lessons like maths or science, we're taught something deeper, something less visible, known as the hidden curriculum. This curriculum is learning undocumented lessons about correct behavior, social expectations, and responsibility. Think about respecting public spaces, acting in a responsible manner, understanding consequences. Things we're taught that often go unnoticed as they're slowly not etched into who we are, but also who we'll become. And looking back, if such a tiny litter-picking program could have a profound impact upon me to this day, it really gets me wondering, What would happen if it was replicated on a larger scale? Instead of it just being a local thing, what if it was regional or national? Would it produce the same positive behavior-changing effects? I'd like you all to think back to the global pandemic we experienced in 2020. During this time, many schools, governments, and a variety of other institutions began promoting public hygiene. This was often through methods such as having hand sanitizer available, effective hand-washing posters, or even certain routines such as a 2-meter rule. This did promote a positive behavioral change within the population, and I'm sure that many of you, like myself, often find yourself looking at hand sanitizer and maybe even instinctively using it. Not because you wanted to, but because you were taught. And that's at the core of education. Not just to inform, but to shape and change. Not reflecting our society, but actively constructing it. But if education is truly shaping us for the better, this does raise a deeper, maybe even more disturbing question. What else exactly is it shaping? I remember when I was choosing my A-level subjects a couple of years back. Initially, I wanted to pursue business, law, and French, as they were subjects which I did have a genuine interest in. I was also excited at the idea of studying law at university, and these subjects provided a clear pathway to that aspiration. However, I soon began to realize something. My school only offered a fixed list of subject options. From this list, the only one which I initially wanted to study was business, leaving me to pick from options which I didn't really want to pursue. It was in this moment which I felt disappointed and confused. Why is it that a system meant to empower and promote curiosity within young people was restricting their ideas, their passions, their interests? This led me to discover the concept of agency versus structure, the tension between what we want to choose and what we can truly choose from. I thought that I had freedom in choosing my subjects, but in reality, I was confined by the curriculum structure. And this is what many students often experience without realizing. They believe that they have freedom and independence in making decisions. Even I believed this at the time, but looking back, that's not always the case. We're choosing from options which were already selected for us to choose from, to try and guide us into pathways predating us. So, can we truly say that we have freedom in this regard? Or instead, are we being nudged towards certain pathways to be conformed? Subject choices can influence degree options, these degree options influencing future career prospects. Now, I'm not saying that structure is all bad. It has its benefits. It ensures that many, on a global level, have access to a fair and equal education. Without this structure, it would lack the consistency and accessibility it is famed for. But this standardization has come at a cost which we can't ignore. And that cost is that millions of students are being shaped by similar educational frameworks, which can lead to similar outlooks and beliefs in the future. I feel the clearest example of this is standardized testing through exams. They were designed with the justification of meritocracy, the belief that success is based on natural ability and effort, and in many ways we can see this as justified. They were designed with fairness in mind, with students answering the same questions under the same conditions. It then provides a measurable evaluator for their performance, in the terms of a score or a grade, which can be used for university applications or for job applications too. But this has come at a trade-off. And that trade-off being that students are often trained to memorize and to regurgitate knowledge in a way which coincides with a simple mark scheme or structure. In this way, creative thinking can often become secondary or even discouraged, as it doesn't fit into the predefined structure of the mark scheme. Even when it does utilize correct reasoning and logic, it may be disregarded. These tests may not actually assess how we think, but truly shape it. And that shape may often to become more predictable, more simple, more conforming. This evidently highlights an unspoken lesson we learn while in education: to confine our curiosity to systems constructed by society. I now begin to see how this has not only affected my future and your future, but that of millions across the globe. Such simple nudges can have a profound impact in defining the futures of many. So, where does this leave us all? Education evidently requires a certain structure to operate. Systems such as subject options and standardized testing feed directly into this structural concept, helping to maintain a sense of order. On the other hand, it must also attempt to balance promoting individuality, independent thinking, and creativity. Perhaps education was never meant to be a platform solely for change or solely to conform, but a perfect balance of both, providing structure through curriculums while leaving enough room for students to grow and blossom into who they want to be. From simple litter-picking lessons to choosing subjects, I've now begun to see education in a new light, not just a place that we go to learn and absorb knowledge, but where we truly learn how to behave, how to think, and sometimes even what choices we're allowed to have in a sense. And the strangest part of all of this is that we often don't even notice it happening. But maybe that's the whole point of it. Education is constantly shaping us, pushing us between who we want to be and who society expects us to become. And I don't think that's an inherently bad thing at all. It's just the society we've always lived in. The real challenge is noticing when this process is happening, so you begin to question it and question whether you are conforming. So, as you move through school, follow your timetable, pick your subjects, or even just finish your exams, take a moment to stop and to question yourself. Is what I'm doing my choice or the system's? Because once you ask yourself that question, even just the one time, you're already taking back some of that agency mentioned earlier, that self-control. And that awareness alone may well shape your future more than any single exam ever will. Thank you.